Thank you everyone so much for coming to Yampa Valley Sustainability Council's Fall Intern Closeout Presentation Ceremony. My name is Dakota Dolan. I'm the Internship Program Manager as well as the Forest Resilience Projects Manager with YVSC. I'm so excited to be sharing the wonderful work of Mackenzie and Sammy today. If you're unfamiliar with the program, it's a 12-week professional experience for local students and recent graduates to give them direct exposure to a professional experience with YVSC, a local nonprofit in sustainability. Their term starts with being paired with the staff mentor, and from there, together, the intern and the staff member create a project that both meets the needs of the organization, as well as fulfilling a desire of that intern's career path. All of the internship projects are related to Routt County sustainability initiatives and environmental projects that we are all currently working on at YVSC. And I would love to introduce our Executive Director, Michelle Stewart, to say a few words before we begin.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Cody, for such a wonderful overview of the program, and welcome. It's so exciting. This is one of our 3 favorite days in the year, which is when we get to see the fabulous work of our interns. Our internship program is such an important part of our work as an organization. We feel very strongly that empowering our next leaders to go on and do even better work than we can do today is essential to creating the future that we need. And so I really want to say, Sammy and Kenzie, amazing work over this past term. It is such a pleasure to have Dakota be leading the program. She's done an exceptional job working as a primary mentor, and then they've worked closely with staff as well as directors. So I just want to say thank you for coming and making this a celebration that it is today. We always learn new things from them, and so our interns bring in their own innovation, their insights, and their commitment to the issues. And then we as staff really try to impart what it is to be part of the daily work. And so I just want to say that the projects themselves are substantive and important, but also the legacy that they create is one that we continue to celebrate moving forward, and it's making real impact at a time that we need it. So thank you so much for coming. It's really a pleasure to have a packed room in this beautiful space. And so I will turn it over to Cody to cue up the presentations. Thank you.
Great, so we will start with Mackenzie Dotson and her project on the Colorado Green Business Program.
Doing it now.
There we go. So maybe just a click.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. Okay, great.
All right. As Cody said, my name is Mackenzie Dotson, and I am the Green Business Intern for this fall. I focused on food producers in the Yampa Valley and connecting them to Colorado Green Business Network. Alongside me in this photo are farm manager Marco, my mentor, Elkstone Farm. Didn't know they could do that. Sarah Covington, the other half of the team, which is Jamie, and then our very own Connor Burns. Oh, well, now it's going to work. All right, we're fixing that. All right, we'll figure it out. It's still legible. Great. Okay, so I am currently pursuing my bachelor's degree at Colorado Mountain College in sustainability studies, which includes a permaculture design certificate. I already have an associate's in outdoor recreation leadership, and I'm also able to get a second associate's in outdoor education. So as you can tell, I'm really excited about wilderness risk management and adventure in general. I'm also really passionate about water in the West and that conservation, which has strong links to agriculture, particularly regenerative agriculture. And I've learned a lot about sustainable economics this term. So I'm very excited to combine these last 2 interests with this project. So I worked alongside I worked alongside my main mentor, Paul Bunny, and our assistant coaches, Ashley Dean and Connor Burns, and they make up the green business team at YVSC. I also partnered with a couple organizations, the Community Agriculture Alliance here in town, Elkstone Farm, which is out by Strawberry Park, and the Colorado Green Business Network, partnered with them more virtually as a whole. So what is the Colorado Green Business Network? They offer, they have two broad categories. They either offer assistance or recognition. And so that can look like both on and off-site coaching. And then there is this certification tier where every few years they submit their data and they can progress through this. And that could be anything from like a teeny tiny business that operates out of your home to Denver International Airport. So they also have the Green Business Tracker. So if a business wants to sign up for this, they will register through there. And then they'll be findable for anybody who wants to support a green business specifically. They also have a lot of networking opportunities through their workshops, and they can help do direct installations. And so YVSC with the Green Business Team is a regional partner of the Colorado Green Business Network. So that gives businesses here a more tailored approach instead of doing all of their work virtually. Like I said, we have the Green Business Team with those three folks that will work with me, and they are the ones that will go physically to these businesses to do site assessments. And then we also feature any local businesses that sign up on the YVSC website. So my project objectives were to build a stronger bridge between the sustainability efforts in Steamboat and the agricultural community, which is really strong and sometimes unseen part of Steamboat, but really important makeup of our population. So my main project was to compile a database of all of these businesses and then initiate contact with them. And I also just in general wanted to get people to know more about the Colorado Green Business programs, even if they aren't interested at the moment, they at least know that it's an option and they can come back to it. And then we moved through the process of registering a few businesses, and I also was able to identify a lot of really important discrepancies between what CGBN currently does and how agricultural businesses actually operate. So my first task was to gather info. So I spent a lot of time with the Green Business Technical Manual, and I also was able to be connected with a couple current CGBN businesses, namely Smithfield Hog, which, as you can guess, they have a lot of pigs and they produce meat. I connected with Oakley, who is a green business specialist at on statewide level, and I also met with Michelle Meyer at the Community Ag Alliance to learn more about the local agricultural culture and what the businesses that are selling through that store are already doing, what they're looking for, and how her work with that nonprofit contributes to their sustainability that already exists. My next, oops, did that work? My next task was to make an email template that I would be sending out. And I really wanted to focus on my favorite tool for writing long emails, the 7 C's of communication. I want it to be easy to understand, brief but comprehensive, making it obvious what I'm looking for and what needs to happen next. And overall it's friendly and making an offering, not a demand. And I also was able to tailor this template to be a little bit more personally relevant. So if I'm a regular at the apothecary, I can say like, oh, hey, I know that you're not really food, but I want to let you know about this because this aligns with conversations that we've had in the past. And this is something that I will be able to leave behind for future green business interns to use or edit as they need to so that they can continue the same work. The next thing I did was build a database. So using mostly the Community Ag Alliance list of producers, I identified what is the business, who are the humans behind it, and how do we reach them. And then if they got back to me, what was their level of interest, and then if we continued to communicate, where did they progress in the process? And then I also had a bunch of notes. Did I follow up with them, call and leave a message? Did they message me on Facebook out of the blue for some reason? Or maybe there was some anomaly, like I couldn't find an email officially, but there is this like weird Facebook group that you have to request access to, and I think I found an email in there. So just things that'll be relevant to the green business team and future interns if communications with these businesses continue. And this is also something that I will be able to leave behind for future interns and the green business team to use and expand on. Maybe somebody comes in and decides they want to focus on restaurants, or maybe they want to include all businesses downtown. And that could be changed and modeled for them so they know what's already been done. They don't have to repeat work. And I've also highlighted businesses that I think share strong values and can be a really good fit for the green business program. So the business that got the furthest in the process was Elkstone Farm. So we were able to do a site visit and an assessment. So we walk around clipboards with this big document that has all of these priority areas and ask questions about what they're doing. And then after that happened, we completed an opportunity assessment. So we let them know, here's what you're doing really well already that CGBN is looking for, and here are your next steps in that. And then I was also able to write a little recap of our visit and what we learned to send out on the Climate Action Plan newsletter. Did it go twice? There we go. So this is pulled out of the Green Business Technical Manual, and that visit to Elkstone was, I think, the best way to learn about what these things are. Because on paper, you're like, of course, policy and leadership, resource reduction. But then we get to Elkstone, I was able to learn about like what they're doing as far as offering workshops to any community members that want to learn permaculture or figure out how to set up their own compost or something like that. They already have a green team set up, which is a great first step for any business that wants to be a part of the network. And then are they tracking their usage of energy, water, what have you? And then the resource reduction is the more technical side of it. You know, what are the like physical, even like machines that they have in place? Do they have automatic water shut off for when it rains? Do they have solar panels? If there's transportation at this business, how much of it is electric? How much of it can be electric? So my recommendations to YBSC from this project are to make and strengthen connections with trusted organizations in the agricultural community. We already have a great partnership with Community Alliance, so continuing to communicate with them about what CGBN can do for businesses, and then maybe consider reaching out to an organization such as the Colorado Cattlemen's Agricultural Land Trust, and they conserve ranch land for families that are interested in working on preservation. And then I found a lot of gaps between the current CGBN structure and how these businesses operate. So the first one would obviously be land use. Most businesses that have land aren't working on it unless it's agriculture. It tends to just be landscaping. So when you're like physically on the land, and that is like where your office is, things are measured really differently, and things are just used differently in how they're seeing that. Water being a huge one for agriculture, they use way more water than any brick and mortar store would have. So can we honor businesses that are using cover crops to save water, or even like trees to create shade to prevent evaporation? Are they capturing runoff with something like a hugelkultur mound or a retention pond so that they can reuse that? Waste is really different for ag communities as well. They have a lot more organic waste, which creates a lot more value. So they're able to compost and like return that waste into the system that we have in place. And they also have bigger challenges with recycling because ag tends to be more rural, and those programs don't can reach that far. The way that they're measured is also really good. So if you have brick and mortar store, you're able to calculate your square feet. But Elkstone, for example, because it's 690 acres, we had to convert that, and it was like 30 million square feet, which is an insane number, and it doesn't really make sense on paper when you're looking at like the documents that are produced by them joining the network. And also looking at animal treatment and ethics. Agriculture is almost the only business that has animals unless you have a pet shop, I suppose. So how are they being treated? How can that be incorporated into what we're looking at with the site assessments? And then, of course, continue to reference the database and use it. Like I said, we have businesses that I think would be a really strong fit for YBSC. So my key takeaways from this project, out of the 20 businesses that I was able to reach out to, 65 did not get back to me at all. I think it was about 30% who responded. Only one business was not interested, and they cited that because most of their processing and packaging happened outside of the state, they didn't think it would work well for them. So I did let them know that if in the future they would like to look at their Steamboat specific office, that building is still a part of their operations and can be improved, and to reach out to us if that's something that they decide. And then a couple of people said, not right now, but please get back to me in January and let's look at this, which makes a lot of sense for ag businesses. As I was reaching out, that was kind of the time of year where they tend to be winterizing and getting everything set up for the cold season. We had 2 folks that were interested that I struggled to make further communications with, and then we moved 2 other businesses fully along that process. So further questions that I think would be useful to ask are, what would further incentivize ag businesses to join the Color Green Business Network? How does the program currently deter ag businesses? So for example, the way that things are measured and the things that they're already doing that don't fit into the structure that we should be honoring. And then how much time do these businesses have for this type of program? And what time of year is optimal for them to consider it? Any amount of time that they spend sitting in a meeting such as this is time that they're not working. So we need to be cognizant of when is best for them and what we're taking away, and if that's going to be worth it. And then how can current ag businesses support new or interested ones? When I talked to Smithfield Hog, they said we would love to encourage more businesses to join, but there's not really a structure within CGBN that makes it easy for us to refer others or even be like a mentor to a smaller ag businesses. And then most agricultural enterprises have been owned by the same family for several generations. So they have a lot of conservation data that is going back a lot longer than most of the businesses that we see. So can we incorporate that somehow into the recognition of these businesses when they go through that certification process? And then other projects that I did while I was here at YBSC, I kicked it off with going to the Yampa Fall Fest with Abby, and spent 5 hours drawing leaves with children. It was super fun. Talking to folks about YBSC. There were a lot of other nonprofits there, so it was really fun to meet the others and learn about how everyone is connected. And then I've also gotten to write for the Next Generation newsletter, which is sustainability information that's aimed for the younger audience. And that has been a joy because I love sharing the little things about sustainability that I've been learning at school or just in my own time and being able to get that to the world. I also got to shadow Connor at the recycling depot, and that really spoke to the versatility of what a nonprofit is able to do, even with such a small team. How many different projects that they have going on. And the waste that they are diverting at that location tends to have a higher impact if it ends up in the landfill. So it's a really cool initiative that I hope more people learn about. And then towards the end, we had our soiree. I think I saw most of you there, and I got to bust out the fancy camera and take pictures for that event, and make more connections with people that are involved with YBSC in different ways. Some of my personal takeaways from this project. When I entered this and originally pitched this idea and started telling people about what I wanted to do, I was told to be really cautious. And I started to develop a little bit of apprehension because a lot of people were like, oh, like be careful. But turns out that is not a huge deal. It is easily managed by being professional. I'm offering information, again, not making a demand. I'm not making an accusation. So as long as I'm maintaining that courtesy, people tend to be courteous back. And then also, I definitely went into it a little worried about like, oh, what if people say no? What if people reject me? And I mean, we're all terrified of rejection at some level, but I think in the professional sphere, it was better to get a rejection than it was to just not get a response at all, because that was feedback for us about, okay, why don't they think it fits? And how can we look at that in the future? I also really expanded my perception of like, what is an ag business? We tend to visualize, the barn with the cows and some corn growing. But there's also, in the state of Colorado, it's called cottage food business, where if you're just operating from your kitchen, you can get certified to produce certain things. A lot of those are sold at the community ag alliance. And additionally, what are the farms doing that are too big to benefit from a farmer's market, but aren't like a huge industrial, monocrop farm, or like producing eggs in a huge warehouse? And where do they fall, and what kind of work are they doing? As you can tell, I'm working on public speaking. That started when I was about 8 years old, and I would make PowerPoints about whales to show my grandparents and their house. And that has developed more. How to speak to people professionally is something that I really enjoy and that I want to get better at. So it was really cool to be able to have workshops on that and have multiple opportunities like this one to practice that. And then my final takeaway was, again, the versatility of a nonprofit. This is a pretty small team, but they're able to accomplish so much. And when we picture busyness, we kind of picture stress, but I think that YVSC is busy in a way that everyone is very satisfied with their work because they're really getting things done, but they're also very connected to each other, and being able to help each other and going bowling just for the heck of it. So that's something that I want to continue to look for in future jobs, are teams that really get things done on a much broader scale than you would think that only this amount of people would be able to, and that genuinely want to spend time together. Okay, I would love to thank Dakota, our internship manager, for supporting us through learning skills outside of our projects and helping us brainstorm through what we were working on. Michelle Stewart, our executive director, for teaching me about a different way to think about what a disturbance is. And my fellow intern, Sammy, who has great experience and connections to the ag community, and was really able to help me work through some challenges that I encountered. Tim, for showing me the connection between green business and land and water. And then my mentor team, Paul, Connor, and Ashley. I've really enjoyed all of our meetings, and I learned a lot from y'all. It was really great to work with everybody, and I hope that we cross paths again. And then they're not here, unfortunately, but Michelle Meyer at CAA, my conversation with her was one of the highlights of my internship. I really think it's amazing what they're doing at CAA. They have very strong, like, place-based equity work happening over there for the ag community. And then Oakley at the Colorado Green Business Network for answering all of my questions that I had about the program and how to interact with different types and sizes of businesses. Any questions from y'all? Michelle.
Well, wonderful presentation. Thank you. It's communicated very, very well and very touching, very inspiring. So thank you. At the outset, you mentioned that you advanced in your interest in sustainability, economics, kind of the intersections between sustainability and economics. And from the insights that you gained and kind of, what you put together over the course of this term, what are some of the things, like the grounded insights that you have, or those little kernels that you take as you kind of refine how you think about sustainable economics?
Specific to economics.
Or like just green business, those.
Yeah. Thinking a lot about resource reduction and how, everybody wants to reduce their resources because it usually saves them money mostly, but also time and potentially staffing. But how much investment does that take from the outset? And how can that be further incentivized? Thinking more about, I think that a lot of the current economic structure is very short-term oriented, and agriculture is a really great sector to think about more sustainable economics because they tend to think longer term than other businesses might, especially because a lot of those businesses are passed on through the generations. So being able to learn from them how to think longer term and what that looks like, and also kind of bridging the gap between you're already doing a lot of this, but there's also things that can be built upon that could potentially either save you more money or put more money back into the community so that people are more willing to support you. I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense, but in my head, it's like a circle, and making sure that agriculture is a part of that circle makes local economies a lot stronger. Ashley.
In your conversation with Smith Field Todd, what were some of the benefits that they found being part?
They really enjoyed being able to network with other businesses that have similar values. And they didn't really expand on whether that was just, having more contact information for businesses or if they were attending more workshops. They were pretty short answers that they gave me. They also really appreciated being able to be recognized and have that, I guess, as like a part of their marketing system, that they can say like, this is the work that we're doing and this is what we value.
Great job. It's terrific to see what you came up with. I'm struck by the disconnect it feels between your point that there are gaps between what the business network was set up for an agricultural business. And I wonder if you may not know the answer to this, but it feels like there's a disconnect at the state agency level, right? State agencies like Cody and Ryan and I were on the call with the Colorado Department of Agriculture. We were talking about all these emission reduction goals for the ag sector, which should be recognized. There are businesses using renewable energy on the farm or cover crops, all these sorts of things. So when the state is setting goals for a sector, it would be really nice if business network could sort of pick those up and sort of highlight them. I don't know if you think that kind of dialogue is happening or could be happening more between the agencies.
Yeah, so there's there were two, now we have Upstones, 3 total ag businesses that are part of the Power Greens network, which is not a lot. And all of them kind of cited this like, oh yeah, having to convert acreage to square feet felt like a barrier. I don't know fully what that looks like on the back end, like if that 30 million square feet number becomes a part of like an equation, like mathematically. But I also would note that the disconnect is not always a super negative thing, because conservation looks different for agriculture. So the way they collect data and the methods that they use being a lot more alive, that's something that can be hard to quantify. So I think, if I got to go to a state meeting, I would say like, let's find kind of an agriculture ambassador, somebody who is in that world, who knows a lot about it, and is able to communicate both with them and on the state level.
Would it make sense to have one set of standards for whatever agribusiness looks like?
I don't think a different set of standards necessarily, but I think expanding what currently exists, like there's no section for like if you have animals on your farm, and then like when we were physically walking around Upstone, we got to the part that was like it said landscaping, and I mean when you think of that, you think of like this, not their like 600 plus acres, and that was like a really short section of that paper. So for agriculture business, that just being a little bit more expanded to think about food.
Thanks, that was cool. I learned a bunch, so I appreciate that. I was being Colorado Green Business Network, assuming that this is a statewide thing, and this question may be outside of the scope of your project, but do you know, are there like regions of the state or counties where they're getting a lot of interest in this program and there's a lot of uptake from the businesses in? Is there an opportunity to talk to them to find out what they've done that's worked and what hasn't worked?
That's a great question, and that's part of the reason that I wanted to be more connected. I don't know the answer to that question. Paul probably knows more, maybe Ashley. But I would imagine that the geography of it can gain some momentum, but I think more importantly, the industry itself. As Smithfield mentioned, like we want to get more ag businesses, so they already have those connections. I think that would be a great place for them to pull momentum. Do y'all have a better answer to that question?
I would say we're kind of the state, so this program is strong front range, and so Boulder, Yampa, Rocky Mountain, urban centers. And it really started at a high level protection agency focus on big business, reduction of pollution and that. So I think that's why they wanted to partner with us, was because we're remote, we're rural, we're recreational. So we're really helping them learn. They can expand now through this one all day. They've got another cotton folks like us that are kind of grouping agreements. So in many ways, we're leading them, but they have momentum on their side because they've been running this program for almost 10 years. Right.
Thank you. So the end of my question is, we are those people.
Hopefully.
Great job. See, I guess I have two questions. One, so when a business becomes part of this, they are just getting that label that they can put on their market. That's the incentive.
So the first incentive being support, and that is, I think, probably the main draw, especially for businesses that might not need to market as much. You know, a lot of ag businesses, like they don't really need everybody to know about them because they're selling like hundreds of pounds of meat in Dallas and like driving that down, as opposed to like trying to find local consumers. So for ag, I think the assistance and installations that they offer is probably the biggest draw. In order to have that like stamp that you can put on your marketing, CGBN will send a business like a press kit, but they have to have, you know, one of those tiers. So the first tier that you saw that was green, that was just like support. That's just so you're plugged into the resources. And then beyond that, you have to provide data every 3 years, I think, to show that you're improving what you're working on, and that you're like looking for these new innovations in all these different areas. And that's how you eventually will reach gold. So it takes a number of years to get all the way up there.
And is there any financial grants or incentive or whatever to help businesses do that? I mean, like some businesses, I was just thinking, they're making all kinds of money. They have, you know, money to just pour into this. So, or in my experience so far with ag businesses, they run pretty, you know, shoestring. They're not like making tons and tons of money. Some, you know, huge ones might be or whatever. So is there different businesses based on their economics could money to help them?
Connor can definitely provide a better answer to that question. But one thing that I learned from him when we were at Elkstone, he was looking at some machine in Terry's abnormally large crawl space, and he was talking about like, oh, if you wanted to replace this, you could do this, this, and this, and that would get the price down here. But then if you waited to January, it would get the price way down here. And it was like incredible to hear, like, you know, all of this at the top of your head. So I think being plugged into those resources to know about like what are the opportunities to reduce cost of things. But there are some grants that I noticed when we were going over the opportunity assessment. So I don't know if CGBN as a network offers those grants, but I think that they have partnerships with others who can offer that kind of money. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, there's definitely funding out there, but that was kind of my main thing to Terry is like, how do we make this
Like, is this profitable? How do you become profitable? And how do you allow other people that want a small farm to be able to do that? Because that's what we're trying to encourage, getting out of this like monoculture type farming system to more local, small producers. So profitability is, I would say, a main, obviously goal for any business, but key to any small farm in agriculture. But yeah, and then of course, capitalizing on any state and federal funding is helpful for them, so.
Paul,
Maybe your last question, I don't know. So, curious, because you came into this internship. Now you've gone through the process, what's your takeaway as you go into your future? But what was one or two things this internship helped you with in your forward progression? And by the way, great presentation.
knowing what I want to look for in a workplace being a big one. But as far as like the work that I was really doing on this project, learning about where my strengths lie. I really appreciate the ability to improvise on things, and how I can incorporate that into an office setting. And then more, specific to green biz and ag. I don't have to own land. That's to be able to support agriculture. And I can even be on the Front Range and potentially working at like a statewide program and still have those connections and be connected in that way to the way that people get fed. So I think overall just like broadening my horizons as to like, okay, what might I look for in a future job, and what would be possible, but that I can still be connected to the things that I'm passionate about.
Just one more related question. Did this experience change the way you thought about what you might want to do in the future? So did you come up with like, oh, I thought I was going in this direction, but maybe a little sideline figure?
It's a great question. I don't know if I had like a very clear, like, this is exactly what I want to do when I graduate before I came into the program, but I definitely will more strongly consider nonprofits in the future. I've done some nonprofit work when I was in AmeriCorps, but that's a service program. So our involvement looked pretty different. So this is my first time kind of being on the other side of that. And I have really enjoyed that. So I'm definitely gonna filter nonprofits in my job searches from here. Okay, thank y'all.